Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco. Just Shout Out Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I just finished my next Sharon Tate movie, and it is the third to last one. Well, technically, not really, and we'll talk about that later because there's one of them that's a part of a series. And then, I could watch the sequel to this, technically, I guess, even though I don't think they're connected. I just finished Valley of the Dolls. Now, this is technically her most well-known movie, and I can definitely see why, she stuck out like a sore thumb. She did a great job, just like I expected her to do. And the whole movie, it has problems, and it isn't perfect, but I would say it is pretty good. It wasn't bad like I expected. Like just after a while, it seemed like every time I watch one, it would be like a symbol of bad things, and it would be bad, and it would just, it was kind of like a bad experience. Not with this one. Actually, it's pretty funny because this movie, the reason why it's called Valley of the Dolls is because dolls are, dolls. They're sleeping pills that the characters in this movie get addicted to, and eventually other things. They're hooked on these pills. And it's so funny because in June, that's when I was supposed to review this movie, and you guys remember what June was. It was the month where I was taking that bad pill. A lot of it. And so it's like, it was perfect. It was straight up like completely like meant to be that month, to represent that month. Fuck that month. That month sucked. And if you guys don't know, in June I was on this pill and it made me sick, and it was just terrible. And I'm still getting over the sickness that it gave me. And if it didn't give it to me, it at least enhanced it. Anxiety disorder. It definitely did something bad though. And so I found it very interesting that was the movie I was supposed to watch during that particular month. So anyways, this movie it's very similar to, I would say, like Licorice Pizza in terms of it's a lot more about character than story. There is really good story that happens, but a lot of it happens in the third act. Like the first two acts, it's kind of like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, they kept on jumping around. First off, you have this woman named Anne. I couldn't even remember her name. I had to look that up. And she leaves her hometown to go to New York so that she can work as an entertainment lawyer secretary. And her character's definitely like the worst one in the movie. Like, she's supposed to be the best one. She's supposed to be the most likable character, I guess. But I really didn't. Like, right off the bat, she was engaged to this guy at home, and where she came from, Lawrenceville, whatever. She was engaged to him. And the first thing that she does when she gets to New York is she starts sleeping with this entertainment lawyer. I was like, what the hell? Like, oh. And we're supposed to like her. Like, I don't understand. Very weird. Very, very weird. And that guy who she was engaged to, he's never mentioned again in the whole movie. I was like, I wonder if in the book, like, he's ever mentioned again. Like, that's always another thing, too, when you watch these movies based on books. You're always wondering, like, did that plot get resolved? Did that character get spoken about again. It's always like it's always in the back of your mind. And I don't know why she's in this movie. Like, I literally don't. Like, the only reason why, I guess, is because she can be the only character who doesn't overdose or just have a bad life at the end. Like, that's the only reason, like, why she should even be in this movie. Like, she had no point at all. And at one point, she just disappeared. And then, we just focused on fucking Jennifer and Neely. And, those characters were really the stars of the film. I really think that, if I were the one who had adapted the book, which I wonder if the book is better, because I get the feeling that it might be a little bit better, but I don't know. But what I would have done was probably just do a contrast where, you have the two characters, Jennifer and Neely, and then you don't have a third character, because she just kind of weighed the movie down. Like, I liked the way that her hometown looked in the winter. There's a lot of winter shots where they show her hometown, and it's like, ooh, this is really pretty. There's snow everywhere. And, like, that's about it, though. Like, her character is so boring and so, like, she never really has anything interesting going on. Like, she's a weirdo. Like, there's one point in the movie where, near the very end, where all of a sudden she just, like, jumps on the bandwagon and starts getting addicted to pills, too. And I just thought, this is weird. This is really weird. And then she lies down in the ocean on the beach, and all of a sudden she's like, forget it. I don't want to be on pills anymore. And all of a sudden she just gets off of them and goes home. And I thought, that would have been a great ending if it were another character who was better and who was in the movie more, and not this kind of boring side character who, kind of bookends the good story in the movie. Because then you have this other girl, Neely, and I really thought she was my favorite. At first I didn't think it was going to be that way for obvious reasons, but I loved her acting. It was so good. She was so, she had a transformation. Like the other characters, well, Jennifer was not written to really have a transformation, because no matter what happened to Jennifer in the whole movie, she doesn't really ever transform as a character. She just stays the same, and that's kind of the point. And then for the other character, she has a transformation, I guess, but I didn't really see where that was. So Neely, she goes from being this kind of underappreciated novice to being a star actress. And what I really liked about her too was that she had this husband who's really supportive, and they worked really, really well together. And I loved their dynamic. It was really cool. It was like La La Land. And that's what the first kind of part reminded me of, La La Land and Licorice Pizza. So then she becomes a star. She gets addicted to pills. And then she becomes a biatch. Her husband leaves her. She gets with another guy who's a piece of shit. And, a lot of stuff in that second act is just very, like, stereotypical, Hollywood, it's everything you'd ever think about with, like, Hollywood actors and Hollywood drama stuff. Oh, the actor got on pills. The actors became jerks. It's everything that you'd expect. But the reason why it works in this movie is because of that acting. That acting is just so good. It makes you forget that this movie is like, you've seen it before. You know all the plot points, and just it's expected. And the movie's very well made too. There's a lot of artsy things and a lot of crafty sequences where they utilize different colors and different things, and I really loved like the creativity in this movie. It definitely felt like a real movie made by a real movie made by real people. It didn't feel like Barbie, or a movie like like a factory, like Blue Beetle, something like that, where it came out of a shitty factory that nobody wanted. And I know I keep saying that, and I shouldn't. I never used to do that too, and I always prided myself on never being like someone who said like, and But for some reason, I just right now, I am a little bit. Oh shit. So that's the second story, and then she eventually gets clean, and then she becomes a biatch again. That part at the end I was kind of unclear about, but then of course at the end she gets hooked on pills again. And probably my favorite part of the movie was the part at the end where she's like walking around on this empty street, and she's just like completely alone, even though she was this like huge star, and it's so dark out, and it's just so like haunting, and it's really, really cool. And I thought, like, that is awesome. Stuff like that, really, really cool. And that was the end of her character, was just her like alone, being like, somebody out there. There's somebody out there. I need somebody. Like, that was really, really tragic. But speaking of tragedy, I would say, that was sick. There was a hair in my mouth that fucking... what's really gross too, guys? Like, what's even grosser than a hair in your mouth? An eyelash in your mouth. Like, there have been so many times this summer where I've had an eyelash in my mouth, and it just, for some reason, like, it just grosses me out so much, and it's really creepy too. Like, have you ever, like, ugh, like, there's been some times too where an eyelash fell in my food, and I'm like, okay, I'm not eating that food anymore, ever. It's like, for some reason, like, eyelashes, like, falling in your food in your mouth, really, really gross. Even if it was, like, one of Sharon's eyelashes that fell in my food, I'd probably puke and throw up. Now, Jennifer's story is much different. It's a tragedy from beginning to end. She's an actress who's not taken seriously. She's basically just an object, which... And I'll tell you guys this, too. I don't need to do any analysis of this movie, because it's all right there in front of you. Like, there's really no need to do any analysis or anything, because, you just watch the movie, and you'll see everything right there out in front of you. It's really not something that is worthy of, like, oh, then there's that underneath the surface. And no, it's all above the surface, because this was the transitioning point where it's not under the surface anymore for her. It's all above the surface, right out in the open. That's always the point with these actors, where they go from being little actors to being stars, is whenever they have these movies and shows where everything is out in the open and nothing is subtle or under the surface, all the messages that they have, all of the signals that they want to send, all of the symbolism, it's all out in the open. Because at that point, they're like, they're fully in the system. Unfortunately. And it is a very dark movie if you think about it in that context, real life context, real life everything. It really changes how you view the film, when you could just view it as like, oh, this is a nice story. So Jennifer, as I said, she's an actress who's not taken seriously. And then she hooks up with this guy who's a singer. And he gets sick with, like, I can't remember what they called it. It was like Hutchinson disease. And he becomes a vegetable. And then she does quote-unquote nude films, which there's a lot of blatant hypocrisy in this movie in terms of that type of stuff, because the movie is clearly like on the moral high ground that, like, if you do a movie with nudity, then you're not a serious actress and you're a shameful whore or something. But then you see you see multiple nude scenes in this movie, and it's like, okay, if it really is like that, then why are you showing all this on screen? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, fuck off with that shit. We know what you're all about, So, I thought that was kind of funny, that was one of the weird things about the movie. But they have lots of those double standards in these movies too. Like Peter Dinklage, the way that, if you guys didn't know, he got really upset that they're going to have dwarves and Snow White and the shitty ass token Snow White that they're working on. But apparently, back in the early 2000s or the 90s, he really championed Gary Oldman pretending to be a midget in a movie. And I say midget because he's not a real dwarf. He's a fucking, regular sized person. And Peter Dinklage defended that and said he's Gary Oldman. He can do whatever he wants. And so there's a lot of hypocrisy in Hollywood. This movie, it's still got that hypocrisy, even though it has all this tragedy and, beautiful, sad stories that, they're very well written and everything. It's a movie. The movie has hypocrisy. And then she's also forced to, sleep with this French filmmaker, and, she's kind of guilted into taking less money and all this stuff. And finally, she just becomes so depressed. She also has to get an abortion. And then near the end, see, guys, every time something cliche happens in this movie with Hollywood drama crap, you could take a shot and you will end up like Jennifer in this movie, But the final straw is that she has to get a mastectomy because she has breast cancer. And so then, of course, as soon as she doesn't have breasts, she won't be anything, because that's all she had to begin with in her mind. And I will say, she did a great job in this movie. The thing is, though, is that I would still say that Neely was my favorite, but still, she was very close in second place. It's just too bad that the other character of Anne, that she was very, unimportant and kind of you could throw her in the trash and not really care. So she overdoses, and that's that, and that's probably the saddest part of the movie. So anyways, I can't really think of much else to say. Like, I watched it, and it's over now. In terms of food, what I was getting at earlier was that this movie feels like steak and potatoes with a glass of Diet Dr. Pepper. The Diet Dr. Pepper represents Anne. Because, whenever you eat a meal, at least for me, I usually drink at the beginning and then at the end, and I don't really drink while I'm eating the whole meal for some reason. But in this case, it's like, yeah, you kind of drink it just because you have to. It's like, it's Diet Dr. Pepper. Diet Dr. Pepper is gross as hell. It's chemically, it's really gross. And so then the steak is Jennifer and her story, and Tony, her singer boyfriend. Their story is the steak. It is meaty, it is good, it's got tons of stuff going on. It's very, very tragic and sad and emotional and just perfect. Oh, shit. Sorry, guys. That was kind of tragic and emotional, too. Like what I did to your mom last night. Okay, and so that was sort of the main thing. And then the potatoes were Neely. Because Neely's story, I felt like if Neely's story was all on its own, it wouldn't have worked at all. But I felt like Jennifer's story, if it were on its own, it could have worked, kind of. So, the steak and potatoes, they kind of go hand in hand, and it's a nice meal, if you can get over having to drink gross-ass Diet Dr. Pepper. I guess I'll end on this, because I really feel like this is kind of a letdown review. Because there's not really much to say except I just basically explained the whole plot like Safi would have. But I guess the last thing that I could say is that, watch the movie yourself if you want that quote-unquote analysis. Because there really is no need to do an analysis with something where, they just tell you right to your face what goes on with these characters. It's all right there in the open. And it's also something where I think that this movie, it's not close to being her best movie. And so that was the other discussion I was having, was that, is this movie going to be like the best one, and is it going to be like the highlight, the star? No. But if you took out performances, and if you said, is this her best performance? I would say, like, it might be. It might be. And I would also say to take a look at the poster, because the poster has a lot of symbolism going on as well. And a lot of it is very out in the open with the symbolism on the poster. It's not necessarily... but a lot of the stuff on the surface level, and I'm just moving it around in my rankings. Where do I move it? Because it's yeah. There we go. Yeah, that's... I guess I can leave it there. Nah, not really happy with that. But if you look at the way that they do the stuff for normal things, then you can look at how they do the stuff for abnormal things. Like, for instance, on this poster, part of the symbolism is that there's a shape on the poster, and it's like a pill. And, you know, you have the characters, and they're inside of the pill, and, you know, Sharon is on top, and her character is the only one that dies, and so there's certain things in here that you can really, and once you understand things like that, you can look for other things that are going on that they, you know, they don't think you'll figure out. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the review at least, because I was really not excited about watching this movie. Like, I wanted to put it off as much as possible, because it seemed like a bad juju. And I would still say that, like, I wouldn't really recommend this movie unless you're in the mood for something like this. Like, you have to go in knowing what you're going to get. You can't just go in and be like, ooh, I'm going to watch another movie of hers. Ooh, I'm going to watch an old movie. No, you have to be ready. You have to brace yourself for trauma, pain, and sadness. But at the end of this movie, I never cried. You know, that's one thing to brag about. But I might cry now. That movie is really sad. Just kidding. And I don't know what review I'll do next. I was thinking about doing the sequel, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. But I heard that movie's a piece of trash. Oh yeah, and one last thing. There are so many times in this movie where they say FAG. It put a smile on my face, because I was like, damn, this was back when they made real movies and they weren't afraid to say words like fag. I mean, it was amazing. Like, when Sharon said that line what was that line? Because there was a line in this movie. It's probably one of the greatest lines in movie history. She's at the pool. Yeah. She says, you know how bitchy fags can be. I was like, oh my God. That is just, if I were able to get her autograph in person, at the time, I would say, can you please inscribe, you know how bitchy fags can be, and then your autograph? Because that is the greatest quote of all time. That's better than, like, go ahead, make my day. That is better than every single line I have ever heard in movie history. Like, I'm sorry. It's true. But by the way, I do have her autograph in my room right now. It's framed up on the shelf right here. It cost me $400 for hers and then somebody else's, and then I took somebody else's out and gave it to someone who wanted it, because I didn't want it. So yeah, suck on that. I bet you didn't think I was going to get that autograph. And see, that's the only autograph I really care about having, honestly. I don't really care about autographs very much. I think they're kind of a waste of time. I much prefer, like, taking pictures and stuff like that, and just having, like, the experience of meeting certain people. Autographs really aren't my cup of tea. But I'm glad to have this autograph. So please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of the movie, and then please subscribe if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon for her next movie, which will be The Wrecking Crew. That will be her October movie. But this is the catch, and I know this review has taken more times to end than Barbie took. The Wrecking Crew is the last movie, a part of a series of movies with Dean Martin And so there's 3 other movies before it. It doesn't really seem like the movies impact the other. Like, it seems like they're just kind of standalone stories. So I would just ask your guys' opinion of if I should watch the other ones in the series, because I really don't want to at all, honestly. Like, I started watching the first one back in July or something, and I was kind of like, ugh. Sorry, like, I was just like, ugh. Okay. So goodbye, everybody. See you soon.